2023 was a really, really big year for tequila. A lot of growth. We knew this was happening early on, maybe around March, when we saw that the number of new brands that were being added to our database was outrageously large compared to what it was the year before. And so I already knew by March that we were probably in record-breaking territory in terms of new brands. And I was right. By the end of the year, we ended up with 316 new brands added to our database. But just so you know, last year, what was a record year, and that was 186.
And
so we went from 186, 2022 was 186, 2023 was 316. So wow. That's just insane. It's crazy. Yeah. The amount of new brands coming into the market, it's just not stopping. And right now it's accelerating at a crazy pace. So I don't know where this is all going. Honestly, I do believe we have enough brands already. And I don't know what a lot of these new brands are bringing to the table. Mm-hmm. But they keep coming. I think we should blame George Clooney because he's the one who started this madness.
Of those 300 plus brands that came to the market in the last year, do you know roughly how many reached out to you to be part of Tequila Matchmaker's Additive-free Alliance? Or do you know how many of those new brands that did become part of the program?
There are, I don't know, I would say probably about 10 brands that were very, very interested in being part of the Additive-free Alliance on the day that they launch. So they would let us know early, sign all the NDAs, and then we come to the facility during production and take our samples and get everything ready before they even announce their product. But for the majority of them, no, they don't contact us until after they're in the market. So
because they're not contacting you until after they're in the market, do you think that's something that they're an error on the brand's part of not knowing the importance of being in this additive-free category, or do you think they just don't know about the additive-free movement in general?
I don't know, but I kind of like it better when the product's already on the shelves. It's actually less work for us because then we can just buy bottles off of a retail shelf and send them to the lab for analysis, instead of having to go to the distillery and on the specific day when the bottling's being made and then take something off the line and then get all that samples shipped into the States, which is a big drama.
Got it.
So once it's already on the shelves, it's a lot easier. I prefer that. So I don't want to encourage too many brands to do the other way.
Got it. Of brands that are in Tequila Matchmaker's database, are you able to see which brands are getting more or less attention? Are you able to see, if there's a lot of ratings coming in for specific bottles and things like that?
We know that additive-free products tend to score higher ratings than so if it's a product that's on the list, by average it scores higher from people than if it's not on the list. I don't know sales data or any kind of stuff like that because we're not really involved at that level. But I do know that we're receiving almost every day now emails from retailers, people who own retail stores, some large and some small, who want to be part of the program, want to be members of the alliance, because retailers can join that as well.
Oh, really?
And get retail shelf talkers and hang tags for bottles and stuff like that. And so we've been sending out packages every day to retailers all across the country, and even one in Canada now. So so it's spreading, and these retailers are telling us that by creating an additive-free section or putting shelf talkers and hang tags, our hang tags are really super beneficial and increase the sales in the store. Wow. So it is having an impact with customers, and that's really great. I mean, that's good news for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great news for the category in general. At the moment, how many brands are part of the Additive Free Alliance, if you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, 111. Yeah, it's way more than I ever thought we would. I would say we have probably like 30 brands right now who are at various stages of going through the process. The biggest unfortunate thing lately is that a lot of the brands now that are trying to go through the program are failing um, because the brand owners don't know what's actually in their product. Uh, we will take the samples, buy them ourselves from a random retail location, and then send them to the lab. And they usually come back with something in there, and we send that report to the brand owners, and they're like, "Wait, how can this possibly be? I was assured by my distillery that there's nothing in here." And we're like, look, I don't want to get involved between your relationship with you and your distillery, but here's a lab test. If you don't want to believe me, send your own stuff to the lab, and at least know what's in your product. So it's kind of been awkward
Yeah.
to be in a situation where we're supplying information to them. It's like shocking to the brands. So that's why when brands tell you like, oh, we're additive free, you know, unless they can show you a lab report or an audit by a third party, they may not be lying because they may be told something by their distillery, but it may not be true. So just be careful.
Yeah. No, that's a wild thing about the tequila business that I feel like I can't imagine any industry that I would personally like be in not knowing what's going into my product. And I just
Yeah.
find it absolutely insane that a lot of these brands really have no clue in some cases what is actually going into their product. But as you said, it's not terribly uncommon. So
No,
that's
it's very common. It's extremely common. In the first few years of the program, oh, you know what? It was easy. You have like siete lenguas and fortaleza, ocho. Um, you know, these things are super, super clean.
yeah,
And so those were the brands that were all on the list in the beginning. And now the list has grown in popularity, and all these other brands want to be on this list. And so now we're seeing, it's becoming more difficult, the program to maintain, to run. It's getting more expensive because of all these brands they're going through the process and failing. So it's and unfortunately we can't well, fortunately we can't disclose the ones that
right.
are failing. But another thing we've been doing, which has been fun, which we haven't talked about to anyone, is when a brand makes a claim that they're additive free and they're not in our program, um, we'll we'll quietly buy the product and put it into the lab, and just for our own knowledge. So if and when they ever do come to us, we'll be like, yeah, I don't think so. So
Do you see a
that's
time
becoming fun.
where do you see a time where you might make that kind of information public, or maybe you don't make it public, but do you think there's another entity that might do something like that where they randomly will lab test products, whether they claim additive free or not, and post those results in some type of public forum?
I already have enough legal issues and potential and threats and all kinds of people that are not happy with us.
You don't need to be redundant
Um,
with that.
I don't need to add another thing to the list, but anybody could do this. Like anyone can just buy something off the shelf and send it to the lab. And
Sure.
there's great labs in the U.S. that can detect a lot of stuff. So doesn't have to be me, but it could be anybody else who wants to do it.
uh Kind of in that vein, but switching gears a little bit, I don't think you've ever told me the story of how Tequila Matchmaker started. How did you find yourself? How did you and Scarlett find yourselves with this app, with this website, with this information that you're sharing? How did this begin, and why did it begin?
I had a company in New York City. I was a founder of a company in New York City for professional photographers. And because I was a founder, all of the founders had to take pay cuts to to keep the business going. We hit a rough patch at some point, like 15 years ago. And so then Scarlett and I were like, we're living in San Francisco in a really expensive apartment. And we're like, what can we do to save money? So then we're like, let's just go to Mexico, get an apartment somewhere there and work online and be in the tequila region because we were big tequila fans at the time. So we left. We ended up living in Mexico for 2 years. And in that period of time, met a lot of the people in the industry and studied, took classes and went to distilleries, and the whole industry was very generous with their knowledge. And we learned a tremendous amount in those 2 years. Then we came back to San Francisco with all this information, and we had our blog, but we're like, let's build an app, a simple app that we could put together all of this information that we knew, like how to rate, how to taste, what's the difference, all the different tequilas that are coming from all the different distilleries, and just organize that all into one little app. And so we decided, let's do that, and we built the first app. And we thought, if we ever get to like 10,000 users, this would be all worth it. And we never really thought we would ever get 10,000 users. And so then I'm looking at the stats right now. We're at
I was going to say
294,825.
Yeah, I was going to say you're close to 300,000, right?
Yeah. But then the app kept evolving and changing, and we kept learning more and more about not just about the industry, but about like how apps work, and the tequila industry itself is really complicated because there's different distilleries. Then you can have multiple distilleries for the same brand at the same time, and then there's lot numbers and all those other kinds of things that all the really serious super geeks want to talk about and know. So we had to come up with a model that could handle all of the different complexities that are specific to tequila. Anyway, we're now working on version 4. And so the design, we're in deep into the design of the new version of the app. And it's going to have a whole bunch of new features in it, and it's going to take a while. We're probably about 6 months. Optimistically, it's going to take about 6 months because it's a complete rebuild from the ground up.
Got it. Any new features, or is it more of just a improvement upon what's already in existence?
It's a lot of it is improving what already exists, including performance. So what we did was we got a new server structure. So we have all new servers, and then we rebuilt our API so that it would be faster. And
what are you talking about? I thought the app's one of the fastest.
No, it's not. It's it's 11 years old. The code, the backend server, the API that we built is 11 years old. Can you believe it's held up all this time?
Yeah. That is one of the biggest
complaints. A lot has changed.
The speed is one of the biggest complaints that I see just in comment sections, Reddit threads, things like that. So I think a lot of people will be happy speeding up.
Well, we built it for 10,000 people. That was our wildest. And then, so now, obviously, a lot has changed, and there's a lot more people using it. So right. We have to grow with it.
What else do you see on the horizon in 2024 and maybe even beyond for Tequila Matchmaker? Not just the app, but the Additive-free Alliance in general.
There's going to be a few more sections built into the app. And the Additive-free Alliance stuff is not slowing down. The requests are constant. And so we're still trugging away at that. And that's going to probably become even more visible in the marketplace in this year.
It's great to see that the momentum is only picking up, not slowing down or even really staying stagnant. So it's nice to know that things are accelerating. There's a lot of rumors that swirl around Tequila Matchmaker and the Additive-free Alliance program. Are there any rumors that you would like to squash here that you can kind of correct or say otherwise?
Why don't you tell me, like, what have you heard, and I'll answer with
well,
if they're true or not.
Without naming brands, there's a fairly large brand that supposedly, I've heard it phrased a few ways, but they supposedly own Tequila Matchmaker, or they are just investing heavily in Tequila Matchmaker, although they're not part of the Additive-free Alliance anymore. I've heard that there's a large brand that definitely has a financial stake in the program.
Yeah. So I heard a while ago, a couple years ago, that Patron bought Tequila Matchmaker. And this was news to me. So I went to my bank account and I was like, let's see if this is true. And I see no evidence of that at all. And if it was true that Patron bought the app, it would have been a horrible investment because their scores are kind of low. Their distillery does not rank very high, and they are no longer on the Additive-free Alliance program. So, like, what do they get for their money? I don't know.
I'm not sure either. That's I think that I think is the biggest rumor. There's that same rumor just with other brands connected to it. Big and small. One of the other rumors that I don't hear often, but I have heard is basically, and it's in the same vein, that brands are just paying for their reviews. Brands are paying for higher scores, and they you can't trust Tequila Matchmaker is essentially the motive behind that rumor.
I've noticed that the brands who are scoring very low are the ones who tend to like to say that kind of stuff. But no, I mean, like, we're as pure as it comes. We don't take money from brands. No brands own any part of us. They never will. And nobody can pay for ratings. Nobody can pay for anything. I mean, there's been people who have requested ratings to be deleted because certain users, or they didn't like what was said, and well, that's a real person, and that's that real person's thought. We suggest you contact them. That's it. But we don't get involved. So, like, we don't. There's nothing that we do. We do not take any money.
Yeah,
high ratings and stuff. It's crazy.
Right. One of the things I've heard from several brands, which to me, I find this interesting because it's on your website, this information, but it's very expensive to be part of the Additive-free Alliance. So maybe you can correct that misnomer.
So the first year is free. So I don't know where expensive comes out of that. And if after the first year the brand sees some type of benefit from being on the list, they can renew. And for renewal, it's $1,000 a year. For that $1,000 a year, that covers the lab fees that we incur to test the products, and an entire day for me to kind of drive all the way 2 hours to wherever the distillery is, spend the day there, and drive all the way back. And all the administrative stuff that we have to do. So it's kind of like it's a break even, and then they get all the marketing materials they want. They can participate in the program. We don't charge for anything like that. It's just a fee to kind of like cover the expenses and support the program.
Yeah.
And most brands, after seeing what it does for 1 year, it's like a no-brainer. $1,000 is absolutely nothing. So
It's, in my opinion,
you
it's
know,
one of the best, it's one of the best marketing tactics you can utilize, and you're not going to find any type of advertising cheaper than $1,000 a year.
I feel it's like a token gesture to kind of support the program in some way where we can financially continue to keep doing it. Fortunately, the brands that are in the program are usually enthusiastic about it, and they're concerned that we're not asking for more because they're worried that the program is going to go away or something.
Mhm.
Um, but but so far so good. I mean, the best thing you can do to support the program is to talk about it. It's to spread the word. It's to talk about um, additives in tequila, with people. But just bring it up in conversations and talk about it and educate people. And anyone can do that. And that's the best thing that you could possibly do. Just talk about it. Um, we're seeing incredible movement here, and like certain things, like we're in Mexico, so we don't really see what's happening in store shelves in the US unless people tell us what's going
Mhm.
on. But we are seeing major brands, big established brands that have been around for a long time, changing their recipes and changing their processes so that they can be on the list. And I never thought we would get to that point.
Yeah.
So I know something's moving and something's going on, when you have, and you're going to see it all this year. You're going to see large brands that have been around for a long time suddenly appearing on the list, um, because they made some modifications to what they were previously doing. So it's been really fun experience to see this happen.
Yeah, no, I bet. That kind of leads me to my really my last question is, what type of products in general, or changes to the industry like you just mentioned, are you anticipating in this new year?
You're going to see a lot of very small distilleries that are like under the umbrella of bigger distilleries that have daunas, fermentation with in wood with fiber, stainless, copper pot stills. You're going to see a lot of very small, uh, almost ancestral kind of style products coming out from a wide number of distilleries. Um, I've been to several of them already, and I see that they're like partially built, and I know that they're all going to be finished this year. And so you're going to have a lot of choice. If you're a tequila lover, you're going to have a lot of choice from all these really small micro distilleries. I think this is the Fortaleza effect. I think a lot of people, a lot of brands, a lot of distilleries are seeing the success that Fortaleza is having on a small scale. Like you don't have to be gigantic to be successful. There's another segment of the industry that's thriving, that's really super micro,
Mhm.
and so you're going to see an explosion of these micros in 2024.
Wow, that's really cool. I had not heard about that, so that's exciting.
That's extremely cool.
Yeah.
And I'm touring these places, and I'm like, every single one of them's doing it right, and they're doing it for the right reasons, and they're really excited about it, and they're thrilled to expose themselves to that new type of audience. And it's kind of like, I don't know, in the US, there's just a giant market for this now.
Yeah,
So that's the US consumer is really kind of like influencing what's happening in the industry,
that's awesome.
which
It
is which is great.
almost sounds kind of like a rebirth in in general for these smaller, just better made products.
I don't know about better. I'm just saying it's like really slow and really low and really small batch, and it's all the stuff we want. It's just you can't complain. And then they're loaded with character. The stuff, the distilleries that are done, that I've tasted the product from, it's like, man, just loaded with character and
That's awesome.
lots of cooked agave, and you're going to see it's going to be a fun year with all these new products.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, I'll leave it at that. Thanks for joining me, Grover, and answering a bunch of questions. Really happy to see all the advances in the Additive-free Alliance program, and just to see the industry thriving. So it's really cool to hear from you and learn a little bit more about the program.
Thanks for asking.